2024 might be the fastest a year has ever passed for me. Usually when creators say that, it's because of a major life event that consumed every waking second and made time fly by, like having a kid. For me though, I did nothing. The reason for that is, well, do you remember at the start of this year during my Assassin's Creed 4 retrospective when I said this? If you need anecdotal evidence, I once had an estate agent out to value my house. Well, as you may notice, I'm still in the same office, because this process has taken 12 fucking months. And so, for the entirety of 2024, my girlfriend and I have kind of been in a bit of a limbo, having countless viewings, hearing nothing back, getting a sale, it falling through, getting another sale, sorting out paperwork, the mortgage, and issue after issue, and it dragging on and on and on. Granted, she has done 99% of that work so that I can read books about pirates and rewatch Doctor Who about 13 times for a video that gets demonetized. Thank you so much, I love you, I'd be dead in a ditch without you. Mwah. But because of all of that, we've been in a state of, we'll probably be moving soon, since this time last year, and when you think you'll be moving house, you don't make a ton of plans. You have all of your time occupied preparing for needing to pack everything up, and it's just generally quite mentally draining. Now, I don't mean to complain. The privilege we have to own a house, let alone move house, is not lost on me. I'm well aware we are in an immeasurably lucky position, and our stress in this situation is one of the best kinds of stress you can probably have, but it has been generally disruptive nonetheless. The one thing I did do though, was play an absolute metric fuck ton of video games. Honestly, more this year than I usually do these days. Last year, I made it a tradition to sit down before the year is out and go over the games I played this year that stuck with me. Not ones that necessarily came out this year, but the games that I played this year that resonated. There's a lot of games I play that I make videos on, but there are so many more that I don't, and so that's what this is for. To look at the ones I didn't turn into projects, but that meant something to me all the same, and to maybe give all of you something new to add to your backlog, and one day, maybe, possibly, perhaps, think about installing. Last year, I came up with this idea last minute, and so recalled all the games off the top of my head, but this year, I came prepared, and so made a list that I added to every single time I finished a game, and so because of that, this video will likely be longer than last year, and I will regret it with every fibre of my being. Let's get started. Coming off the back of last year, ending with some intense games in Alan Wake 2 and Jusant, games that really work to engage your brain, I kind of wanted to start my year off by doing the opposite of that, especially knowing I'd soon be diving headfirst into my video on Black Flag that will consume my every waking thought. And so I jumped around at the start of the year and tried a few different things. First off was Sonic Dream Team. I had a trial for Apple Arcade that I'd literally never used, and being the Sonic head I am, I decided to give this one a go. Dream Team is really cool, and honestly feels like perhaps it was the template for some of the elements that make up Shadow Generation's level design, in that they are expansive, and that's really where the game shines. The mechanics aren't anything too special, but the way it blends the stage structure of the classic games with the base gameplay of Frontiers makes this feel unique. Goes to show the basis of Frontiers gameplay is actually suited incredibly well to this sort of level design, and allows for fast-moving sections and slower, more thoughtful platforming. On a gameplay front, this might be the closest thing we've seen to an evolution of the adventure design ever. It's not perfect, and I think it lacks a lot of charm and heart. It's hardly a return to the characterization or world building I loved in the 2005 to 2010 era, but mechanically and design-wise, it's super strong, and I hope they bring this to consoles and PC at some point. I'd definitely buy it and run through the whole thing. I think in a post-Shadow Generations world, Dream Team has fallen down a little bit for me, but it's still really solid and good fun with heaps of replayability, and that's kind of what Sonic is all about. My girlfriend and I have been watching the original series of Yu-Gi-Oh! Through for probably 2 years now. We're very bad at getting through shows, and to be fair to us, Duel Monsters is a long show. But because of this, I wanted to try my hand at the newest Yu-Gi-Oh! Game that was released back in 2022. Master Duel. I feel like if you're going to have a game like this that allows for online play and earnable currency and microtransactions, the best place is probably a trading card game. I don't think games like this will ever beat whipping out your cards in real life and laying down some mats to play a quick round, especially since the current Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta is just absolutely not for me. And that's not to say classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't have tons of bullshit as well, it's just that I play with people my own skill level, and so we tend to have more fun playing matches that more closely resemble the anime, rather than one-turn win moves that take 3.5 minutes to pop off. I liked Master Duel though. It was fun to give a go, to build decks and to see what current Yu-Gi-Oh! Was all about. But I think my default will always be to use physical cards. You can't beat the feeling of holding them in your hands. The game this period though that I played the most has to be No Man's Sky. I have 700 gigabytes of footage, partly because I played it a lot, but partly because Shadowplay creates massive fucking files for no reason other than probably spite for me personally. A lot of this footage also has the Treasure Island audiobook in the background, because I was listening to it for research during the Black Flag video.
He had taken me aside one day and promised me a silver fourpenny on the first of every month if I would only keep my weather eye open for a seafaring man with one leg.
No Man's Sky is such a nice game. Generally, I don't find myself engaging in all of the new stuff they added over the years, and there is loads of it, because wholeheartedly, I really love that original experience. There was something so mesmerizing about how empty No Man's Sky was on release, and I talked a little bit about that in my video on emptiness as a feature last year. I get why people complained, I get why they added stuff. I mean, it was their plan all along, emptiness wasn't intentional, but despite that, I felt such solace in that lack of stuff, and you can still find that now. My favourite thing to do in No Man's Sky is to just drift in space, to walk on barren worlds, to build a little house in the middle of nowhere, and to just think and feel and empty my mind of any baggage I might be carrying. No Man's Sky is such a simple experience at heart, but that experience provides such an honest comfort that I don't think I've found in anything since early Minecraft. I don't find myself sticking with games like this long term, mainly because I end up with 1,000,001 things that I need to do and don't have the time to slow down, but maybe I should more often. Sometimes using your limited hours in this life to quiet your mind and be totally unproductive is valuable, and it allows me to appreciate everything in life with far greater clarity. A game that certainly was not a calming mental experience, however, was Bloodborne. I talked about Bloodborne last year, so I won't go over it heavily again here, but it did overlap into 2024, which is kind of insane because I started it in December 2022, but I love how slow of a burn it was. A game I could just hop back into on stream whenever I felt like. I finally beat Bloodborne this year. Well, if you ask my chat, I absolutely didn't, but I don't know why they'd say that, they're lying, don't watch the stream VOD back. Bloodborne was such a special game for me, because it's the game that helped me to understand FromSoft's design. It's the game that allowed me to return later in the year to Demon's Souls on the PS3 and find a deep appreciation for it, and for that I will be forever grateful. I don't think I need to sit here and tell you how great Bloodborne is, everyone knows. But if you've for some reason never played a Souls game before, you've never touched anything FromSoft's made, you think maybe they aren't for you, give Bloodborne a go, because it might change your whole world. I always say this, but I think turning your nose up at games and saying, yeah, that's just not for me, is a bit silly. Always give stuff a go, even if you think it's not your speed. It's how I found some of the games I love the most. I was still in a bit of a phase here, not really playing anything new, nothing to sink my teeth into because I was deep in the trenches of the Black Flag video, and so I was doing a lot more casual gaming, but this time multiplayer focused. I made an ad for Apex Legends when they had their Final Fantasy VII crossover, because if you didn't know, on my second channel I'm something of a Final Fantasy YouTuber. I know, finding video game niches and hating myself for it is what I do best. Elva and I tried out Enshrouded because they sent me a couple codes for that, which was a bit of fun. I think she enjoyed it a bit more than I did, but the big one that ended up getting everyone for a while was Helldivers 2, man. This game is funny because at every event, every time it was shown, I was such a detractor. Oh, look at this silly, stupid game. It looks so mindless and boring. Who cares about this shit, man? I should take my own advice and not write off shit for no reason. Helldivers 2 was a fun as fuck month. Elva and I would play it almost every night. We hopped on with friends and community members from the Patreon Discord. It was just good old classic fun. Really reminded me of my secondary school days, hopping on a classic multiplayer game with friends and fucking shit up, having laughs and just wasting time in each other's company. I also loved the discourse around this game, mainly because there was a crowd of people who obviously could read the subtext of the game, realised it was satire akin to Starship Troopers critiquing the US military and government propaganda and the ways in which media can manipulate the public into unquestioning support of wars they don't understand the purpose of. And there was a crowd that thought the game was an epic shooter game about killing aliens for the good of Super Earth and being very unironically patriotic, like, you know, the people the game is making fun of. I think people get this twisted though. You can read the satire and also find the game fun itself, because it is fun. It's a great game. It's mechanically engaging and compelling in its presentation, but it also has very obvious commentary if you know, think about it for a minute. And that commentary is honestly what makes the game even more fun, because it's not played straight, it's funny, and it makes the context of your actions entertaining because it's so obscene. I loved Helldivers 2. I'll probably never go back though, I have a problem with that. When I was coming to the end of the work for my Black Flag video, I needed some very specific footage of Assassin's Creed 2, a few little clips from among the first 2 to 3 hours of the game, and my old footage from 2019 was pretty much all corrupt other than some stuff from like sequence 9 or 10 or something, so my hand was really forced to replay the first 3 hours of Assassin's Creed 2, which became the first half of the game, which became the whole game, which became the whole trilogy. I can't remember the last time I sat down and played the Ezio Trilogy without streaming or making a Let's Play. The last time was maybe 2013 in the lead up to Black Flag, which is weirdly coincidental to be honest. I played them this time on PC, so they were the original versions of the games. I installed a few mods restoring the E3 robes, which is just amazing. Adding in Altair's dagger, which is far superior to his sword, and also I used reshade, which I regret to be honest. I think in hindsight it kind of kills the vibe in a lot of areas, especially Venice. It goes to show how your views on art can change in a short span of time. I had no problems using reshade at the start of the year, but now I think it's pretty bad and a little bit anti-art if I'm honest. So I'm glad I replayed the original 360 version this year too for the video I'm still working on. I also cooked Revelations visuals. Man, I swear it didn't look this saturated and contrasted on my monitor. I would have noticed. This was such a wonderful time though, just kicking back after spending all day editing another Black Flag chapter and soaking in Renaissance Italy or the Ottoman Empire, living through all of Ezio's life in one go, getting to absorb how the games altered things mechanically or developed on aspects from what came before. These games will always be special to me, and every time I play them, I see them in a new light. I learn something new, I connect with something I hadn't before. They are so earnestly beautiful. They carry a simplistic charm that manifests in their artistic focus. They know what they are, what they want to do, and when viewed as three pieces of one singular whole, they are nigh on untouchable. Assassin's Creed 2 has so many tiny details, from the intentional colour palette in each city, to the thought-provoking writing in the codex, to the incredibly evocative music that makes the game feel special even all this time later. Brotherhood is still one of the best to ever do it. The tone of the gameplay, the purpose of every piece of side content. It's such a tremendous game that does a lot without having to do too much to get there. It's just a strong assassin fantasy, atmospherically stimulating and thematically a strong part of the Assassin's Creed series. It's such a core part of the development on Ezio's journey, but also a development on what the Assassin's Creed means to Ezio in a context that parallels Altair in a lot of ways. And Revelations is definitely the weakest overall game, but my god, it's special. What it lacks in its design or world focus, it makes up for in droves with its story. The character work, the theming, the philosophy, the conclusion of it all. I'm honestly still shocked an Assassin's Creed game with a story this good even exists. The fact they managed to tie up Ezio, Altair, 16 and answer so many questions while still having us on the edge of our seat for where it was going next is just so impressive. Constantinople is also super immersive and well designed as a city to wander through. I believe in so many ways it was the best designed city since Assassin's Creed 1. The tight streets, the dense environments, it makes a change from the often huge and empty piazzas or wide streets of Florence, Venice and especially Rome. Revelations and this entire trilogy will always be special to me, and every replay will always mean something brand new. Speaking of the Ezio Trilogy and Assassin's Creed, I've made a few really fun videos over on Patreon this year. Actually, since the end of 2023, I've posted 15 totally exclusive videos over there, and I'm really proud of all of them. I get people all the time telling me it's kind of insane the quality of stuff I post just for supporters, mostly Brett, but I like to. It's satisfying to give back something of quality just for their eyes. I like to make that support feel worth the price of admission and then some. I probably go overkill, but I'm having fun. Some are essays, some are casual sit-down chats, some are more vlog-style videos, and some are a bit of a mix. And right now, until the end of January, if you pledge for a whole year at $2 or higher, you get 30% off your annual pledge if you use code LAZ2025. Patreon has become a huge part of helping this channel strive to make better and more unique things without being bogged down by algorithms, and helps me to not rely on sponsors that can sometimes alter the stuff I make. If you want to help support me and get access to all 15 of these extra videos, plus tons of bonus podcasts and commentaries and other various posts, you can. I plan to post the same amount, if not more, to Patreon next year, so that 30% off an annual pledge is honestly a pretty sick deal, especially if you share the account with a friend and split the cost. Then it's barely even a cost you'd notice. I don't know if Patreon likes suggesting that, but I don't care. I just like having you over there. Unless, of course, you hate my stuff, in which case, yeah, fair enough. This probably isn't for you. Why are you still here? I think the first game this year I properly got invested in and that actually came out this year and that left an intensely special imprint on me was Persona 3 Reload. Before this, the only Atlus game I'd played was Persona 5 Royal, which I still completely adore, but it really is true that the more Atlus games you play, the more you realise that despite how good Persona 5 Royal is, it's actually one of their weaker games, which is fucking insane. Persona 3 is an absolute masterclass in every aspect of video game design, from what makes games fun and intuitive and engaging, to how you can use game systems to evoke specific feelings through their fundamental design, whether frustration, stress, or sympathy. Persona 3 was the first game to add the calendar system, and it's for a reason. Where Persona 5 has a calendar system because Persona games have a calendar system, Persona 3 is designed specifically for it. The narrative and the basis of every single thing you do is rooted in that system, and there's a perfect harmony in play. The way the game uses the concept of personas and the tarot is also deeply integral to the story and manifests so perfectly as to how you engage with choice. A lot of RPGs give player choice as a means to tell their own story. You decide what to say and how it affects the narrative. In Persona 3, choice is a skill check, the same way a boss can exist at a key point in a game to check your damage output. This comparison is specifically for Flash. Persona 3 uses choice to check if you've been paying attention. It's why you get rewarded for picking the right choice. It's not a choice, it's a test of your own literacy and understanding of the characters you are talking to. It's testing your ability to wear the correct persona during dialogue, and I think that's marvelously integrated and deeply underappreciated. What the game explores, using all of its cast, using all of its elements, is so elegantly done that I'd be hard-pressed to not call it perfect. I've never cried playing a game like I cried at Persona 3 Reload. I was a quivering mess at points, and I'm purposefully not showing you footage because I want you to play it. And if you have played it, why not check out my full playthrough sometime, or just skip to the bits you want to see my reactions to. It was one of my favourite stream series, and one I needed after Rebirth. It proved that JRPGs can be truly special, truly focused, and artistically honest. And I didn't stop there where major RPGs that total over 100 hours are concerned, because finally, after almost 4 years since its initial release, I played Cyberpunk 2077. In 2020, I played Cyberpunk, and it was a complete fucking disaster. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. The game was unplayable for a lot of people, and it completely bummed me out. One of the major draws of a game like Cyberpunk was the immersion, getting to lose yourself in a world with depth and nuance and endless detail. But because of the bugs and performance issues, I couldn't. It was too distracting, and so I just shelved it. I mean, back in January of 2021, I made a video looking at its launch and what went wrong, which, to be fair, I still stand by, and it should never happen again. However, since 2021, CD Projekt Red have worked tirelessly to fix the game, to finish the game, to add everything that should have been there day one, and it was a transformative experience. I almost didn't recognize the game. I finally lost myself in Night City, and for the next 110 hours, I locked the fuck in. Cyberpunk is impressive. The effort put into getting this game into not just a working state, but improving upon all its foundations to build something that allows you into its world, to express its concepts, is a feat that goes against all odds. The team that worked on this game clearly cared deeply about their product and their message. What happened to this game in 2020 is a shame, but what remains now is nothing short of a victory. There's a lot to say, and the game is so very, very big, but it's also dense and brilliantly focused too, just like The Witcher 3 was. A lot of people forget that the reason The Witcher 3 worked wasn't its size, it was its commitment to cohesion and purpose. It doesn't waste its space or its time. Intentionality is key, and this is what Cyberpunk does in droves. It has so much to say, and it uses its story, its side content, its characters, and its all-important world to do that, and always has you thinking. Its themes are so elegantly explored with such deep nuance that I don't think I've seen for a very long time. The game is in a constant conversation with itself through the use of Johnny Silverhand, but if we get into the weeds of its narrative, we'll be here for hours. Another day. The way it plays too, my god, I don't think I've had this much raw fun playing a video game in ages. The combat, the player agency, the way you can build up your playstyle and really customize all the intricate details of how you execute each fight is just tremendously detailed and offers so many possibilities in a way that an RPG probably should, especially one based on a tabletop board game like this was. Its gameplay systems blow The Witcher 3 out of the water, as a newer game usually should. But also, in CD Projekt Red fashion, just like The Witcher 3, its DLC, Phantom Liberty, is somehow even better. I'd say that this is CD Projekt Red at their absolute best. It might be controversial to say because of how popular The Witcher 3 and of course Blood and Wine is, but I think Phantom Liberty is the best thing they've ever made. The way this DLC weaves themes and character is an absolute marvel of a dance that they pull off effortlessly. At no point did I feel I could see the strings holding the game together. It just flowed. It was completely organic and had me hanging off of every word, from the set pieces to the unique quest design, the narrative crux, and the way it all ties back into V's personal journey as part of Cyberpunk 2077. This DLC nails it all. It's plain and simple a masterpiece in every way that counts. But the DLC being stronger shouldn't diminish what the overall game does. In fact, it's a testament to it. The main game is glorious, the DLC only improves upon it. Cyberpunk 2077 is unforgettable, and in the years to come, when I've been able to absorb it more, play it again, I have no doubts that I will work on a video for it. Another set of games that I'll undoubtedly make videos on in the future, and technically already did, albeit commentaries, is the Dark Souls trilogy. I finally fucking did it. After last year's video where I talked repeatedly about Souls-likes, it was so obvious that it was time to play Dark Souls. And these games honestly altered how I look at video games as an art form. They changed my connection to gaming in a way I didn't think possible, and it became totally obvious why they are so revered. I have those commentaries on Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 up on the channel, so I won't go crazy here, but there's no way I couldn't at least give them a mention in this video. Dark Souls 1 is a masterpiece. The tone, the atmosphere, the constant push for more power to overcome every obstacle, the constant reminder of hope in a world marred by despair, the way the map loops and winds and wraps around itself in the most impossibly beautiful ways. Dark Souls is one of the games of all time for a reason. But as a trilogy, the way they play into the themes of each other I think is really wonderful. People criticize Dark Souls 2 for a lot of reasons, and I get it. I dealt with plenty of bullshit from that game, although I think a lot of the criticism is unfair, but its place within the Dark Souls trilogy is part of what makes the whole thing work, and Dark Souls 3 wouldn't hit as hard if Dark Souls 2 didn't exist the way that it does. As for Dark Souls 3, originally I was going to dock points for the game feeling a little derivative. It's just Dark Souls again. But I quickly began to understand that was the point. The game is saying something about the constant cycle of Souls games and the yearning players have for the same thing over and over again. The game is often resentful and angry at times, but still indulgent, appreciative, and reflective too, and I think it's creatively pretty beautiful. It uses familiar places and iconography, and uses it not as an epic reference, but as a gut punch. So many of the bosses revolve around people reanimated, puppeteered around, not allowed to simply die. The game begins to fold in on itself, it becomes incomprehensible, and to people who love writing up comprehensive lore guides on wiki pages, that must often feel frustrating. But that's the point. Documenting every single corner of the Souls world is missing the point. It's not about what is, it's about what it's trying to say. It's about the themes and use of characters, not their entire backstory chalked up on a web page. The game is often cynical in that regard, but it doesn't let that warp how the game is designed. It's still a Dark Souls game, it's still a Miyazaki game through and through. It's grand, it's gorgeous, it's designed to perfection, and it weaves all of these messages and themes together with gameplay and level design that is some of the most refined in the industry. I love these games, as video games, as pieces of art with deep-rooted messages, to keep fighting against all odds, to cling on to hope and humanity and what makes you who you are, but also to let go, to let things die. Sometimes an ending is the point, and what is humanity without an end? And where one thing ends, another begins, and that will never flourish. A new spark can never be lit unless the old flame is allowed to extinguish. Around when I finished Dark Souls 3 is when I began to work on my Doctor Who video, which consumed so much of my time from June through to the end of September. And in that time, I tried playing a few things on and off. I gave the Alan Wake 2 DLC a go. The first one, Night Springs, I haven't played Lake House yet, but I plan to. Eventually. But this DLC pack was absolutely sort of middle of the road, totally fine, but nothing greater than that. Not what I'd come to really love from Remedy, and that was a shame after Alan Wake 2 blew me away. I also weirdly one night at like 4 AM decided to play the original Doom from 1993. I honestly don't know why I did that, and most of it is a blur, and some of those levels were fucking horrendous to navigate, like actual hellscapes, which I guess is the point. This game was honestly really awesome though. It's crazy how no matter how old the game is, if it's designed well, it doesn't truly age. The general gameplay loop keeps you hooked, the art design is iconic, and the music just gets inside your head in the best way. I also replayed Horizon Zero Dawn, originally for a video that I never made, and then they announced the remaster that I never played, so that one kind of backfired on me. Although, it's a nice comfort game for me. I think in the years since, I've kind of lost interest in that general design of game, and a lot of the side quests can feel a touch samey and maybe even a little boring, but the core story, the theming and use of characters, especially Silence and Aloy, is still fantastic, and I'll really always adore Horizon. And I also streamed Hellblade 2, which was... oh boy, it was a game that came out, wasn't it? I say this as a huge fan of the first, by the way. However, I did finally settle on a game after some time, something I really connected with and desperately need to go back to, and that is Rainworld. Rainworld channels some of the best aspects of game design from something like Dark Souls, from the unforgiving nature of the world or the fact you aren't told to move in any specific direction. But unlike Dark Souls, that is carefully balanced in favor of the player to create satisfaction and growth, Rainworld feels totally apathetic to your input. The world of Dark Souls is set up in such a way that it exists for you. Rainworld exists entirely independent of you, and that creates a sense of immersion and tension I don't think I've ever felt before. The world you're moving through to reach a goal you're unsure of is full of creatures. It's an entire ecosystem with predators and prey, and they do not care if you succeed or not. Where a Souls game throws obstacles at you but ultimately wants you to succeed, Rainworld's enemies exist to their own ends. They exist to survive, and they will kill and eat you, or defend themselves against you, and it is entirely random other than knowing which creatures are which and what they'll do through repeated plays, yet they remain decently unpredictable. Especially this thing. What the fuck is this thing? It's incredibly fucking hard, and requires great ingenuity to win. This game is a slow burn of absolute torment, but it's one that is endlessly addictive and satisfying. The little slug cat that you play as is so slippery and fluid. It has such an engaging movement system that is both visually interesting and mechanically deep. The way some of these speedrunners move is fucking insane. I mean, I had no idea you could do that. This game is definitely an acquired taste, meaning if you have taste and enjoy games that challenge your preconceived notions of how video games should function, you'll probably fall in love with it. Closing this chapter on my time with the Doctor Who video, I started a game that was very almost my Game of the Year, but that did in fact win Game of the Year. Astrobot. This game, man. Me and my girlfriend streamed the whole thing if you wanted to just vibe to it, but I really needed this game, and it filled a similar spot that Mario Wonder did last year. This game is so charming, earnest, and full of soul, something the industry often lacks, especially in the AAA space. Seeing a beautiful platformer like this as one of PlayStation's heavy hitters is pretty wonderful, and the fact that it won Game of the Year even more so. It gets the giant things right, like the level design, the tight controls, the soundtrack, and the pacing, but it gets so many smaller things right too. The animations, tiny little interactive elements that just make the whole thing feel like such an experience, and the appreciation for such a large catalogue of historical games in a way that feels loving rather than a cynical reference machine. We need more games like this, more games that feel hopeful and wholesome, that just build such engaging gameplay systems to lose hours to, and to be able to share that joy with others. We had so much fun playing this game on stream. Astrobot is so damn valuable. I love this, man. I absolutely loved it. Once the Doctor Who video was done, I took a much needed break to just be lazy, do nothing, and revisit one of my all-time favourite comfort franchises for the first time in over half a decade. Uncharted. I played all of them other than that one on the Vita, which I have played before, I just have no idea where my Vita is. This series of games is really special to me. I remember playing all of the original 3 on my PS3 I got specifically to play Uncharted back in 2014, just after Uncharted 4 was announced. I wanted to finally give them all a play before the new one eventually came out, and I just remember being so in awe of how unique they were at the time. I'd never really played anything quite like Uncharted before, especially being an Xbox kid growing up. I always feel that same feeling when I revisit them, and honestly, I'm so glad I left it as long as I did to replay them. They hit me like it was the first time again. I think it's clear Uncharted 1 has not aged quite as elegantly as the rest. So much of the game is shooting galleries that can get a little tired the further the game goes on. Although I will say, the game doesn't overstay its welcome. It tells a story and it wraps things up in honestly a really short window, and I respect the dedication to focus. I also think if you play the game on the easiest difficulty, it's far more fun. That goes for all 3 of the classic games. Uncharted at its core is an action blockbuster film in video game form, and you want the experience that best replicates that by making Nate as overpowered as humanly possible, and I think playing on easy gives you that. It gives you more freedom to play around and less time spent hiding behind walls waiting for your health to recharge. I've always found Uncharted 2 not to be as incredible as people say. Don't get me wrong, it's a banger, it always will be, and improves hugely on Uncharted 1. It's honestly shocking just how much better this is than the first Uncharted, both mechanically and narratively. They just made everything better. I think one of the things that helps this game is the fact that it doesn't often leave Nate alone. You always have someone interesting to back and forth with, and it does wonders for the moment-to-moment gameplay. Dialing back on combat was also the right call. There's so much more variety here with puzzles and climbing and more bombastic set pieces that honestly have barely aged. But I've always felt that it has a lot of the same issues that plague Uncharted 1. It gets particularly troublesome in the final stretch of the game in Tibet. It really goes on, and I just don't feel it hugely justifies a lot of that length. And that can really mar the experience. Where Uncharted 1 wraps itself up, Uncharted 2 perpetuates itself when maybe it should have trimmed a lot of the fat. Uncharted 3, weirdly, I switched my thoughts on, and one day I might have to make a larger video on it because I think it's the best of the original 3. This might ruffle some feathers because I know this game is generally seen as not great. I mean, I always thought that, but like, this is just Uncharted 2 but better. Pacing doesn't falter, general level design is better, the writing is far and away superior. I love what this game does for Nate especially, but also for Sully and Elena too. I'm not sure how I played this game the first time, but it must have been on mute and with my eyes closed to not appreciate what this game does. It carries so much meaning, subtlety, and complexity. I also think a few minor changes to general design of combat encounters does the game absolute wonders, and I never at any point felt annoyed that I had to fight dudes, other than some of the sections on the boat that still is kinda cooked. Uncharted 4 is possibly perfect. A hot take, I know. It's so true to the spirit of Uncharted whilst being a really engaging dissection of what these games have been and who Nathan Drake is. This game doesn't work without the first three, that's what makes it such a great sequel. That's not to mention how it takes the gameplay formula and pumps it up in a way that makes every single set piece, puzzle, and combat encounter fun and visually gorgeous at the same time. Uncharted 4 is one of the few games that uses its insane graphical fidelity as an integral part of the game's makeup. The game looking this good is a huge component of that awe that is Uncharted. A lot of people criticize this one for being a bit too serious and losing a lot of the whimsy, and look, I get it, to a degree, I agree, but I think what we gain is so much more valuable than what we lose, and Uncharted 4 is such a beautiful bookend to such a wonderful franchise. Obviously, there's also Lost Legacy, which I've always loved. I think the character work is some of the best in the series, and honestly, some of the most visually appealing stuff too. I think this game proves that Uncharted can work without Nate, when done right and when made with intentionality and care. I can't say I love the mini open world, but it does have potential to be something great if developed upon. That sense of raw discovery of the unknown has meaning in the context of Uncharted. Who knows where this series will go next? I mean, supposedly the next Uncharted isn't even Naughty Dog, so there's every possibility it will suck and tarnish everything that already exists. But only time will tell on that front. Switching gears entirely, I think my most played game this year is one that I did not even expect to touch. A franchise I've not played properly since 2012. Fucking Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I want to say up front, I've not even played the campaign yet. I don't know if I ever will, I can't lie. I've been drawn in so strongly by the multiplayer. I haven't played COD properly since Black Ops 2. I've dipped my toes in from time to time with tiny bits of Black Ops 3 and 4, as well as Modern Warfare 2019, and I played the Cold War beta. I think I also played the first mission of the World War II campaign at some point, but from 2007 to 2012, I played every COD every year and was hugely into them, which is probably helped by the fact I was 11 to 15 during those years. COD felt like something I grew out of as I started playing tons of other games, but when I saw Black Ops 6 was coming out, that it felt like a spiritual successor to that very first Black Ops game and that it was on Game Pass, I thought, fuck it, I'll give it a crack. And I've currently put in almost 200 hours. I think it has a particular feel that a lot of modern Call of Duty games just lack for me. I can't say exactly what that thing is, but it's there in its very DNA. The entire thing feels like it harkens back to the days I used to play. Your classes aren't overly complicated with stats that feel impossible to manage. The maps are generally strong, memorable, and varied other than a few standout duds, and the progression feels way more like the CODs of old. I'm not sure if anything I'm saying is actually true because I've never played enough of some of the modern ones to really get a good grasp of them, but with Black Ops 6 I was sucked in right away and it's been a blast. I got Elva into it too, and so almost every night we're hopping on and playing for a few hours. And what's crazy is, I'm actually good at it. I always used to suck at Call of Duty back in the day, but these days I'm killing it almost every match. Granted, that could be skill-based matchmaking, but let me live in my delusions. The zombies too? Man, I really like it. It's not a level with the vibe of the original World at War or Black Ops 1, but it certainly scratches a similar itch to what I know of Black Ops 3. Granted, I didn't play much of it. The new systems they've used since Cold War are strange to get used to, and it's certainly easier than those old games, but there's something about the loop that feels deeply rewarding and engaging in a way that captures the spirit of classic zombies while being totally new. I've loved learning the maps, shooting for high rounds, and even doing the Easter eggs. It's been a ton of damn fun. I'm not sure if this means I'll play every Call of Duty moving forward, but I'll at least give them a look from now on. Maybe every few years one will pique my interest. All of these games were great. I had so much fun this year with everything I played, and I played so much more than what I even talked about in this video. But there was one game that stood out among the rest, a game that just did all of the things I didn't know I needed, and invited me into a world and narrative with such deep and meaningful intent that there's no reality where this isn't my game of the year. And that is Metaphor ReFantazio. Metaphor is the first new IP from Atlas, the guys behind Persona, in a very, very long time, and despite having only played Persona 5 and Persona 3, they'd already won me over. They're the best devs working in the industry today, and Metaphor is a shining example of that. The wonderfully unique setting, the perfected and thoughtful combat mechanics, the use of the calendar system in traversal of a world specifically curated with focused activities that all serve deeper narrative purpose, the way the narrative is woven across 60 to 80 hours without wavering, this game is a fucking marvel, dude. I don't have the vocabulary to explain how much I adore it in a video concisely, but you bet I'm gonna try. Metaphor immediately filled a hole I felt was left by the likes of Final Fantasy. Where Final Fantasy went in the direction of realism and action-adventure, Metaphor is an ode to all of those classic JRPGs of yesteryear. It's proud and loud and silly and patient. Its world is full of wonder to explore and tons of whimsy and creativity in a way that I feel we haven't seen in a Final Fantasy since 9. But it also layers its world with so much meaningful depth. It uses its tribes as allegories for real-world issues without them being direct. They're always slightly obscured and made to fit into the fictional world. The settings are diverse and offer a diverse range of peoples with their own opinions on the state of the world, which is all important for your quest across the continent striving for unity, a utopia amidst a world of oppression, strife, and discrimination. Every single thing this game does is in service of that point. Every social link with the core characters you meet plays into another aspect of that idea. Every side quest you can complete for people adds another dimension to how the people of this world think and feel, and it allows you a greater nuanced perspective as the days tick on by. And that's the other thing that makes this game so engaging, its use of the Persona calendar system. Rather than having an open world or even just a traditional overworld system, it uses the world system from Persona but in a totally new context to give thought to every place you decide to visit. Because days are numbered and deadlines approach within each arc, you don't have endless time. The game is always comprised of 145 days, and so you have to choose to spend those 145 days in the way you feel most optimal to you, and this is how world exploration works. If you want to visit a side dungeon, you need to check how many days the travel will take and then plan for that time. Make sure you aren't wasting time you could be using in a city or town, and then during travel, using your days and nights optimally too. You never go anywhere or do anything on a whim. Everything needs to be calculated and intentional, and it makes traveling endlessly meaningful. Because of this, the world itself, the side missions and locations aren't random. Although dungeons do often feel prefabbed, they're still unique enough as their own layout and challenge. And hey, I wouldn't mind if they were all copy and pasted, because with a combat system this deep, it would absolutely carry. The way you engage with combat using your party is far too complex to discuss at length here, but it's a system that makes even the most standard of fights feel thoughtful. I was always trying to make the most efficient moves to conserve my team's MP, and in doing so was forced to be creative with how I composed my party, which members used and which archetypes I assigned to them. The archetypes being Metaphor's take on the Final Fantasy job system. You can have any party member learn any archetype and then mix and match those skills for seemingly endless results. This game in its party building and combat approach really proves that old school JRPGs can be made today, and they can be utterly remarkable. This game, in every single part of its makeup, feels like a love letter to the JRPGs that used to be, to the old days of the SNES and PS1, but with a budget of a modern title. I wish I could sit here and gush about Metaphor for hours more, to unpack the story, the themes of its world design, the meaning behind the archetypes, the incredible use of subversion and the antagonist's perfect narrative purpose, the gorgeous soundtrack or the beautiful art direction, but alas, I cannot. If you only play one of the games I've mentioned in this video, make it Metaphor. It's a slow burn, as all Atlus games are, and it doesn't present everything to you up front. It's a game that takes thought to play and to understand, and I think that's one of the core reasons why I love these games so much, why I love Atlus. They respect the people who play their games. They don't treat you like an idiot, and above all, they respect the art form that is video games. They aren't trying to bring false respect by mimicking other, more well-regarded art forms. They're playing into what makes video games specifically special, and doing it without compromise. This is true video game art. The truth of what makes this medium what it is. God, I love Metaphor, and I can't wait to finish it next year because I forgot to mention, I haven't even finished it yet. I had to put it down to focus on other projects because I needed to pay my bills, but I am totally picking it back up sometime in January when I can, once shit settles the fuck down. I promise. And so that's my year. That's everything I played that meant something to me, that I felt a connection to. Despite this year being a little rocky creatively with both the house move and ongoing health issues I'm dealing with that are actively ruining my life, I'm fine. Playing games was always such a joy. I really did play a ton this year, and I was able to feel my appreciation of the art form deepen with every one. When you think you're an expert at something, you're probably always wrong. There's always more to experience and more to discover, and I think this year taught me that. Hopefully, moving into 2025, things are more positive. Hopefully, I'm able to work on more projects and maybe do a little more outside of this space too. I found my creative spirit waning a bit at parts of this year, and I think because although I've played so many games, a lot of my creativity comes from living life, and sadly being stuck in a bit of a limbo this year, I didn't live a lot, but sometimes years are like that. What I did this year wasn't unimportant, and I'm proud of what I made. I have a full post on Patreon for free members breaking down and looking back at my 2024 in retrospect, as well as delving into my own feelings on the year as a whole if you're interested. And for those even more interested, I made a companion video to this one exclusively on Patreon, consisting of a look back at all the other media that resonated with me in 2024. Movies, TV, music, books, in a little more of an off-the-cuff style, so give that a look at the $2 tier if you care. And don't forget, 30% off an annual pledge until the end of January. Give it a think. 2025 looks to have a ton of games that'll be interesting to check out, both for videos and not for videos. And maybe I'll also finally play Baldur's Gate 3 that I skipped out on again. I'm sorry, I'll do it. It's just a big commitment that really scares me. It's the same reason I'm not married yet. Just let a guy be. And that's it, that's 2024 done. This video might come out in 2025, I don't know, I really hope not. I'll try my best. It doesn't matter, stop it, it doesn't matter. I hope you all had a really good year. It was a weird one for me, and I talk a little bit more about that on Patreon. I go into detail on sort of like what was going on with me, and the sort of what influenced the projects that I made, or some that maybe didn't make the cut that I would have liked to make if I had more time or energy to do it. It's been a weird one. It has been rocky, and I'm not great. Like, let's be honest, I'm gonna be honest for once. I'm not great right now, but I will be, and everything will be okay. Plenty of things I want to make, plenty of things I want to do. Hopefully, 2025 will be nice and positive, with plenty of creative projects, loads of fun, interesting things, and I'll be okay. I hope. Thank you as well, of course, to everyone currently pledging over on Patreon at the $3.50 plus tier. Your names are here now. I love you. Thank you so much for all of your continued support. Like I said in the video, if you want to check out Patreon, I'm always doing different things over there, just tons of stuff. I really like Patreon as a place to sort of be an outlet for just sort of anything, whereas I try to make the stuff I post here on this channel a bit more full, a bit more substantial. That's not to say the stuff on Patreon isn't. I mean, my standards are just through the fucking roof, to be honest. That's probably what it is. The stuff I put on Patreon, I'm also really proud of as well. But I can be a little more lax and a little more casual with it, which is nice. And like I said, if you pledge in January using the code, I think Patreon has it like on the thing. If you just click the Patreon link, I think it'll be somewhere. Like I put it to advertise it on my page for anyone who clicks it. Then you can get your annual pledge for 30% off. Normally you do get a 10% off regardless, but I thought I'd do that for the new year just in case anyone that, you know, otherwise wasn't going to, or maybe was thinking about it, can get that discount. I did mean what I said, that I really do just want people there. I just like people being over there. Obviously, it supports the channel, and it's, you know, financially very helpful for me, given the sort of upload schedule I have now, and that I'm leaning more into doing stuff that I really want to make rather than I feel like I have to make. So it obviously is super helpful, but I do just like people being there and just having people involved in this sort of mini community. It feels like being able to grow something from scratch again, and really connect with the community side of making this stuff, because it's difficult when there are so many people that could be watching your stuff. So it's nice to have that sort of little smaller space, you know? And obviously, thank you to my Patreon producers and Master Assassins. I'll leave that to my future self, because I don't have the list right now. My screen's black. So, thank you. Thank you to Cabbage, Adam Barnes, Arenathon, Callum Thefmus Kelly, Damien the Not So Orange Gnome, Demi, Geek Fam, Jake Ryan, Luke Pierce, Rolands, and Zedda. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. And that's it. The next project that comes out should be my retrospective on Assassin's Creed 2 for the 15-year anniversary. A little bit late, but it's fine. I really don't love my retrospective from 2019. I think it has a lot of issues, and does just boil down to a retelling of the plot with a couple of opinions in there sometimes. The video I'm making now is far more analytical, there's a lot more depth to it, and I think it's really cool. I mean, the comments that I've had on the previews that I've posted to Patreon have been really positive, so that was really motivating. A lot of people saying some nice things, so I really appreciate that. And if you want to see the preview, it's on Patreon, and also, if you want to see me break down why I don't like my 2019 retrospective, that's also on Patreon. I watch it back and talk about the issues I have with it and stuff. It's a fun video. But that's it, I won't keep you any longer. I hope you all have a great new year, and I'll see you for tons and tons of stuff in 2025. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. I really appreciate everybody for sticking with me for so long. And even if you're new, even if you're a new viewer and you joined last week, thank you. Thank you for tuning in and hanging out. I really appreciate it. The fact that I'm still able to do this with so much creative freedom and a decent amount of financial security. And it's been so long that I've been doing this. It never goes unappreciated. So thank you all so much, and I'll keep trying to give you the best stuff that I possibly can. Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.